It was 1989, and my mother went to school in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. And as you would think, at that time, Saudi Arabia didn't have many opportunities for girls. The most that they were afforded was going to school and coming back home. Nothing more and nothing less than that. But my mother would always talk about how she wanted to do more than this. She wanted to be involved in extracurriculars like sports, and her and the girls in her classes would even go to the extent of making these after-school races just so that they could be involved in sports. And every time my mom would reminisce on one of these moments, I would start wondering why I didn't have that same passion. Why didn't I have that same drive to seek out these opportunities that for me were so easily afforded to me? For her, every opportunity in her life she had to make. She had to build these opportunities step by step. And every time I would get a reminder about one of these opportunities, whether it be an email or another notification reminding me of them, I would have this feeling of indifference, and in extreme cases, after the thousandth email, even annoyance. And so at first I thought it was just a simple disinterest in these opportunities. I wasn't interested in going after them. But after a while, after the thousandth opportunity, I realized that I wasn't just disinterested, but it was something deeply psychological, something happening in my brain. So I decided to pivot to something that I was truly interested in, and that was neuroscience and the way that our brain work. I always did better in the sciences and biology, so I thought, let me look at something that I truly love to explain what was happening in my brain. And so I had to first make a cross-link between opportunities and decisions, because when you think about it, opportunities are just decisions that you have in life. They're decisions that you get to make. So as I started researching how we as human beings make decisions, the first fact that I came across is that we make about 35,000 decisions a day. And that may sound crazy, but it goes from small, everyday things like brushing your teeth and deciding to wake up, to bigger things like deciding what job you want to do or what university you want to attend. And so at first, you're probably thinking, this is a really huge number. How do we make 35,000 decisions a day and make 35,000 good decisions at the same time? And that's exactly what scientist Roy Baumeister looked at. He wondered, how do we make 35,000 decisions and make good decisions at the same time? And what Roy Baumeister found was fascinating. He found that the more decisions that we make in a day, the more our brain wears down over time. It's not able to make good decisions like it used to be. And that's exactly what I felt at ISU. The more opportunities that I was going after, the less motivated, the less excited I was about these opportunities. And at first, you're probably thinking, this is a very pretentious argument. But if you think about it, this happens in our everyday life. Imagine you have two choices. Each one is offering you success and everything you've ever dreamed of. And now, imagine I take these two options and I multiply them by 25. Now you have 50 options, each one offering you everything that you've ever dreamed of. How would you pick between these 50 options? It's already hard enough. I know personally I would just freeze. I wouldn't know what to do. And that's exactly how you would also react. You wouldn't know how to pick between all of these opportunities. And this idea, Roy Baumeister dubbed decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is the idea that when you have so many opportunities, choices, or decisions in life, over time you get fatigued by them. They're just not giving you the same dopamine in your brain. And this idea of decision fatigue is not just corroborated by Roy Baumeister, but another scientist named Barry Schwartz. And Barry Schwartz wrote a very thought-provoking book called The Paradox of Choice. And what Barry Schwartz found in his book was that over time, when we make more choices in life, we get less satisfied with them and less motivated by these choices. And again, this was just corroborating Roy Baumeister's idea of decision fatigue. Over time, you're just not satisfied with these decisions. And I know if there are any seniors in the crowd right now, we felt this recently a lot. Our emails are flooded with thousands of universities offering us every path to success we could ever dream of. How do you pick between these paths? And I know for me, what I did was narrow down the options, and that's exactly what Barry Schwartz thought the best thing to do was. That's where his most famous quote came out of, that more is actually less. The less options we have in life, the more that we value them, and the more that we think that they are worth going after. But this idea is not just something psychological. This idea of decision fatigue is not something just that Roy Baumeister and Barry Schwartz looked at. It's something that is linked to our brain's reward system. And our brain's reward system is controlled by a molecule called dopamine. And I think we've all heard of the molecule dopamine before. It's released after we achieve something that we've been trying to achieve, and it creates this feeling of satisfaction and this feeling of happiness. So you would think that the more dopamine released in our brain, it equates to the more happier we feel. But no, this is not exactly what it means. And that's what scientist Richard J. Morton looked at. He found that the more easy dopamine released in our brain, the less satisfied we actually are with these achievements that we have in life. And the clear distinction that he made was that there's a difference between easy dopamine and hard-earned dopamine, dopamine that you actually had to work hard for. So the more of this easy dopamine that is released in your brain, the more that your cells are actually desensitized to this type of dopamine. You didn't have to work hard for these opportunities you had in life, so you're not as satisfied as you would usually be with any other decision you would have in life. And if you think about this, it makes a lot of sense. Think about a successful person that you can imagine in your life. Let me draw your eyes to Malala Yousafzai. If you've heard of her, she had to fight for her education in Afghanistan, in a time where education was not so easily afforded to everyone. And now Malala Yousafzai has become a global icon. Let me draw your eyes to Marie Curie. Marie Curie lived in Russia-occupied Poland, and at that time, girls were not afforded higher education. They had to work hard for education, if they even got a chance. So Marie Curie would go to these underground labs, and she would go through her schooling. And over time, she made up enough money to move to Paris and follow her dreams of learning about science. And she even had these discoveries in radioactivity that won her not one, but 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. And my final example is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs always talks about the reason that he was successful in life was because of all the hardship that he went through, because of all the failure, because of all the lack of opportunities that he had. So through this, he was able to become a successful individual. So as I link this back to my story, it explains to me why my mother, through her hard-earned opportunities, was more satisfied with them than myself. So at this point of the speech, you're thinking, I just went through all of this research to just explain to you why I wasn't feeling so motivated with these opportunities. But that's not the end of my story. I went beyond this, and I wanted to find a way that I could get past these feelings of discomfort that I had in my brain. So I started joining these online neuroscience classes because I realized that neuroscience was truly the reason that I was feeling this, and it was something deeply unconscious in my brain. It wasn't something that I wanted to feel. So I was telling a girl named Ava, and she was from Beijing, about this story, just like I'm telling you right now. And what she did is that she guided me to a book called The New Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol Dweck. And this book focused on something that I have heard of before, and that's the idea of the growth mindset. And I think we've all heard of the growth mindset before in our lives. Personally, when I hear it for the thousandth time, I get annoyed because I've heard of it a lot in my life, but it's never been truly explained to me what the idea of the growth mindset meant. And that's exactly what Dr. Carol Dweck did. She explained that the growth mindset was something psychological, but not something just psychological, but deeply neurological. It means that people who believe that they can succeed through consistent effort are way more likely to succeed than people who don't believe that they can succeed at all. They don't believe that through their consistent effort that they can succeed. But this is not something psychological, as I said before. It's also neurological, linked to neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, as you would think, plasticity refers to our brain's capability to be molded, and our brain is very malleable. So what this means is that our brain is comprised of neurons, and these neurons have synapses between them. And synapses are just connections between our neurons that allow us to learn and experience in life. The more that we learn and experience, the more that these synapses are made in our brain. And actually, the more that we learn and experience, the stronger these synapses become. Just like when you go to the gym. When you go to the gym once, you become stronger, right? But if you don't go again, you're not going to become even stronger. But the more that you go, the stronger that you become, and that's exactly how neuroplasticity works. The more that you learn, the more that you experience, the stronger these synapses become in your brain. And that's why I believe that neuroplasticity is the key to our future. Everyone in this crowd right now has the same brain that has the capability of neuroplasticity. We have the ability to rewire our brains literally through learning and experience. It's not something just psychological where it's just a mindset that you can achieve. It's something that is scientific and scientifically proved. And so as I end my talk today, I want to remind you that the only reason that I was able to get past these unconscious processes was learning more about my brain. When we learn more about our mind, we are able to gain the power to shape our pathways. Thank you.